Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with Beyond Trek podcast.
This is Beyond Trek Podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Trek Podcast and on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod.
Red alert.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm Dag.
I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And we have a very special guest with us today, Brian Fifter.
Greetings. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Brian.
Hi. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks for coming on
I'm
with
a
us.
big fan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Oh, thanks. So you're the one.
Yeah, I'm the one. I'm that one.
You're the one that's been stalking me.
We actually, at some point in the night, last night before this recording, we passed 1,000 downloads. So that's very exciting milestone for us.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about you. What's being downloaded?
Yeah. So I am the game master and runner of it's a Star Trek Adventures game, RPG gameplay podcast. And it's actually a little bit more, what we're trying to do is a little bit of a hybrid between a role-playing game, actual play, and an audio drama story.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do it with some friends of mine, and my one friend who is also our player captain was the sound designer of Our Fair City, which was an audio drama, and Unwell, which is a related one. So yeah, it's a Star Trek Adventures set in Star Trek universe role-playing game campaign. I am the game master. My friends play the crew of the Starship Tempest, which is actually a sister ship to the Enterprise C. So if you remember the episode of Next Generation where the previous iteration of the Enterprise falls through the time vortex and changes history, and then they have to send it back, and Tasha Yar is there, and she ends up going back.
Yeah, season 3, Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yesterday's Enterprise, yeah. The time period that the Enterprise C came from is when our campaign is set.
Oh,
and our ship is
okay.
So
Because you're in the Lost era.
The Lost era.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you just flipped over to Tasha's where she actually survives.
Yeah, so
universe.
that actual event, like that battle that, is the key of that episode, is a few years into the future of our campaign. So that'll come up eventually in our campaign, but it's a little bit ahead in the future.
Okay,
but,
so your campaign is before the Battle of Naranja 3, where the Enterprise C was lost. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. Because
cool.
there's, I was very...
and by the way, for our listeners, we are going to talk about Lower Decks here. I almost forgot. In case they're thinking, are we listening to the wrong? What the?
No, you're listening to.
Yeah, sorry, you have to listen to me babble about my own.
Yeah, just real quick.
But no, I'm really excited. I'm having a lot of fun. We're all having a lot of fun in it. Basically, the reason I wanted to go to the Lost era is because it's, obviously by the name, we haven't actually seen a lot. And just because of the way Star Trek lore has been built out over the years, there's some interesting kind of contradictions that's, I think, are fertile ground for some fun stories.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason the episode Yesterday's Enterprise exists is because Gene Roddenberry had decided in between the original series and Next Generation that the Klingons were now our friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a story to explain how that happened. The problem was it was produced at about the same time as Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, which also explains the events that led to the Klingons being friends, right? So you ended up in the lore of, you have these two events that explain the same basic dynamic, but the events in the universe happened 50 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So something interesting must have been going on in that 50 years in between, where you had this piece first made, and then 50 years later, this one event is the crucial keystone on which war or peace hinges, right?
Yes.
So that must have been some kind of interesting 50 years in between. So I was interested in kind of exploring that and what that situation might be, that environment, and the Starfleet that we see in Undiscovered Country versus what we see at the beginning of TNG. They're very different Starfleets in terms of their characters and their presentation versus Horatio Hornblower Space Navy and Dora the Explorer in pajamas, the hippie explorers, right? It's a very different feeling in terms of what the character of Starfleet is. And I thought it would be interesting to go somewhere in between and explore that transition between, Space Navy and Explorer, pajama explorers kind of feel. So
nice.
Yeah. So we set it there, and we're just kind of getting going. Our first 3 missions that we're in the process of releasing, that we're up to releasing as we record this, are all from some pre-built scenarios from the Star Trek Adventures game. And then after that, starting with Mission 4, they'll all be original scenarios by yours truly, and that'll be like the start of our actual campaign.
Very nice.
And hopefully a big fun story that people enjoy.
Yeah, we love Star Trek Adventures here. Me and Dag actually are we are in the Star Trek Adventures Fenrir game with ELH.
Which he told me before we started recording. I didn't realize you guys were the Fenrir guys.
Yeah. So I play Captain Brie Archuleta, and he plays a lot of characters, but his main character is Visar, not a Gorn. He's a hologram, but he also plays holographic Zeke or Gorn Zeke, and it's just we just have so much fun, and that's why I was super excited to have you on the show, because we're obviously huge Star Trek roleplay nerds. We were in Trek RP for years together. So
now, what's the name
out right now?
Sorry, what's the name of your podcast, Brian?
Star Trek Tempest.
Okay,
so the name of our ship is the Tempest, and classic Star Trek fashion, it's Star Trek Tempest.
So
if you look us up, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, all the usual places.
So you're on all of them. Whoa. So if you look up Star Trek Tempest, that's where you'll find this podcast. If you are into the Star Trek Adventures world of role-play gaming, that's pretty interesting. That's great. We're going to have you on when we can. Whenever we do an RPG episode, I just kind of sit here in the background looking cute, and Dag and Watney are just, we're an hour in, and they're going,
we yammer.
Yeah. You guys, you're in your element then.
I mean, Watney and I have been writing partners for 3 years.
Oh wow! So we as a group, I have a tiny bit of D&D experience, but we as a group really do not have a role-playing game background at all. We have a huge Trek background. That's basically what Ryan and I's friendship is built on in its entirety. But we had never really done role-playing games as a group together before. So that aspect of it has been very new and outside of our comfort zone, and a learning experience for a lot. But it's in the universe that we all love and that I love playing in. So
that's a part of, I think, Star Trek Adventures, because you get the people who are longtime role players who are looking for something new, something maybe less crunchy, that's more role play driven, and Star Trek Adventures really fits that role. And then you have people who love Trek who have never role played, and maybe they're not that great with systems and things like that. And it's Star Trek Adventures has a very interesting system with momentum and
we're the second one.
yeah, for sure. So
far. We're starting to get a handle on the gameplay aspect of it, but there's definitely a learning curve that
I can tell you guys are doing great. I love the podcast. You guys are hilarious, cry laughing, funny. So I'm super excited to have you here. Thanks for telling us more. Are we ready to talk about Lower Decks?
Yes.
I'm hoping we've all watched it. I'm sure we watch it more than once.
I'll get around to it.
So if you're just tuning in, major spoiler alerts for the first episode of Lower Decks. As you all may know, Lower Decks just premiered 2 days ago in the US and Canada. Still no word on international release as far as I know. So if you're listening to us in the US and Canada, we hope you've watched it. If you're listening to us outside of those regions, your spoiler alert is going to be queued up in just a sec. Okay, so I lost my mind. It was great.
It was. I did too. I liked it. I was quite pleased with how it turned out. It was very much like here's all the main part of the action and the characters, the senior staff, and then here's us right here. trying to have a date during a big disaster on a ship in a firefight against zombies kind of thing, like that, just that kind of air to it. So I was impressed with it.
Yes,
I was very pleasantly surprised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I loved it. I love like cartoons. Like I grew up being obsessed with the Teen Titans 2003 show, and so like this an adult that had a very adult themes in it, even though it was on like Toonami and Cartoon Network.
You do mean Teen Titans, right? Not Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans.
Of course.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have to shut off your feed.
The original 2003 Teen Titans, where they're not little tiny miniatures, they're just regular teenagers, was like they were growing up when I was growing up, and so it was like, wow, this is like cocaine for my brain. And so I loved that, and so this was kind of like giving me the same vibe. It's like adult themes. You get to meet Beckett Mariner, and she is just, so you can tell, she even said like tongue in cheek, I'm really complicated, and it was just great. Like we're gonna learn so much more about them, and it was so fast paced. Wasn't the running time for this like 20 something
22 minutes
26?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's quick.
Yeah, and it felt very fast. Yeah,
so they fit a lot in one 20 almost 30-minute episode. Like,
and it was
very impressed.
I like the humor behind it too. It wasn't over the top, I didn't think. And here's what I did. I don't know if anyone else did this or if anyone else will do this, but I came across something that I think would help. I looked at this as if I hadn't seen any Star Trek before. If I didn't bring any of the prior baggage of the seriousness and the tone of what Trek was before, and just took it as a show, like its own thing. Because I think a lot of the grief that the show was already getting was that Star Trek can't be funny. It can't be humorous. You can't have a show like this, because if you do, then it's not my Trek. It has to be serious. There has to be high stakes. It's got to be about the captain, the first officer, et cetera, et cetera.
We are not merry men.
Right.
At all.
Right. We are not merry men.
Yeah, which is totally ridiculous, because Star Trek has great comedy. The Merry Men, Trouble with Tribbles, Piece of the Action.
But there's a difference between funny moments and a comedy. I think that's the big distinction that fans are having a hard time with, is that, yes, there have certainly been funny moments, humorous moments in episodes. Absolutely. But they're not comedies. Star Trek's never been classified as a comedy.
I don't think, is this classified as a comedy? Because
it is.
It is.
It is. But I still think that, Star Trek has dabbled here before. Trials and Tribulations was less of an episode and more of a concoction to pay homage to the last 30 years of Star Trek when it came out in 96. And that was done really, really well. And just, even in that episode, Worf's line when they're like, those are Klingons, and he's like, we do not discuss it with outsiders. It was perfect. It was 100% perfect.
Yeah,
and we just moved on.
Maybe the distinction that people are trying to articulate is that Star Trek can do lighthearted, obviously, because you have Tribbles and Piece of the Action and similar, but that somehow that is substantively different from a actual comedy premise.
The animated series.
Yeah,
which people worked on. Somebody greenlit that. Okay, that was canon for a while. I love this show because you get comedy, but you also have like the main character, Boimler, who's like stumbling through everything. He's really nervous, and you can tell that he's taking things seriously. There's the relationship that Beckett has with. Again, if you haven't watched the show, you need to stop, watch it, and come back and listen. But the relationship with her mother is like super complicated. Who's the captain? And
I didn't know that was going to happen. Did you know that before the end of the episode? I didn't know Mariner Beckett was going to be.
Seriously, it was a total surprise.
Oh my God.
I did not predict that at all. I was like, I thought that she was just like really just did not like this ensign, and I was not expecting it. And then when it happened, I was like, "Oh, that's amazing!"
Of course,
how they
now
did
it
that.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And her dad's the
It was
admiral.
nice that it was really nice they didn't hold that twist back. It wasn't like something they were going to wait till like episode 9 to reveal. They're just up front. Yeah, this is the deal, and this is what we're going to go with.
And they also, it might be a small thing, but one thing I appreciate about how they did it is the conversation between the captain and the admiral, where they're arguing over the topic. The conversation itself is not set up in this really awkward, like, she's our daughter kind of a way. Like, the conversation proceeds very naturally, and then just when the moment comes up of like, well, she's your daughter too, feels like a natural way of.
Oh no, my subspace
that
beacon is going down. I'm going to have to go.
The
Goodbye.
episode's almost over, and we need to establish this piece of information. Yeah.
And that was a good part, and I'm going to let you finish, but we got to see the Admiral uniform on that screen, and I'm obsessed with Admiral uniforms.
Yes.
So I just want to throw that out there. It was beautiful.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Nice uniform.
Back to Watney.
Okay. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit through the episode because there was a lot that happened and we went a little bit back and forth. So we have like the first scene, which was the trailer. They just straight up took the first scene as the entire trailer. So I was like, okay, I've seen this before. And then we get the intro, which, what did you guys think of the intro? Like the music, I thought it felt
very.
They like go up to the Borg
series.
the Borg cubes. And they're like, yeah, never mind.
Nope.
Like,
We're gonna go this way.
So two things. One, I thought the theme song it felt to me like it had elements of Galaxy Quest in it.
Absolutely.
Which I thought was really cool. Just like sort of another tip of the hat to a franchise that tipped the hat the first time.
Yes.
But you bring up that Romulan Borg thing, and I'm like dropping right back into Picard, where there's a Borg cube in Romulan space. And I'm like, did we just gloss over this big battle in the Beta Quadrant where we end up with a Borg cube artifact? Are we going to talk about that ever?
Like a thread connection here somewhere that is going to like just
Was this
come out of
coincidence?
nowhere and blow
Shooting
us
at
away like the end of
Borg
season 1 or something?
Yeah, so that was that. I really enjoyed it. I thought the music was really good, and the guy who does the music is the same guy who does Solar Opposites for Mike McMahon's show on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
Same composer.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I love the intro. I thought it was great with like the alien, like.
Yeah, I also
the nacelle.
appreciated how I like the construction of how basically this trailer was just the first scene, right? Because the criticism, the pitfall that a lot of things do is they put the funniest moments of the episode into the trailer, and you go, okay, well,
Right.
I already saw the trailer. But here is like, it's the first scene. You get a little bit more of the context in the actual episode itself, but once the scene is over, you can really settle in and just watch it without kind of worrying about where that one shot from the trailer you saw connects into the story that you're now watching.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was kind of cozy. It was like, okay, we saw that, we've seen this already. We've been waiting for this, and we see the familiar things, and then they go right into the beautiful introduction with the amazing music. And then, yeah, you're right. I really agree that it was like just kind of a nice segue for the audience. I feel like a lot of what they're doing is very audience driven, and not so much like we want to tell this story, and so we're going to make things happen even though they may not make sense. That's a lot of what I think Picard fell into, was we're gonna add this element to the story and not explain it or talk about it, and but this was very cozy and it felt very Trek to me. I think if we're trying to get people into Trek, we're trying to get a new audience, this is going to do it. This is right where it needs to be.
I think this will do it. Yeah, I love how the ship was flying past whatever ice asteroid, and they nipped the nacelle on it.
Titanic.
It's like, oh, whoops!
So good, so good. So like right after the intro, we get introduced to Devana Tendi, who goes and introduces herself to Boimler, and Boimler is like the person who's supposed to show her around the ship, and Beckett is getting in his way about it. I kept trying to find some kind of reference to hot bananas, because that replicator was broken and was like spitting out hot bananas, and I'm like, is this a reference to something? Am I not getting this? But hey,
now it's a reference on its own.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, when we see Tendi, our little cinnamon bun, getting onboarded. They're behind her is like the same species, and Dag is gonna know this, or maybe Brian and Big J will, but like the guy with that took the course to get into the academy with Wesley.
Benzite.
Oh, Benzite.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's one of those guys behind her, and I was just like, they can do so much more alien stuff with animation. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah.
I was actually watching for that in my rewatch this morning of like, yeah, because I noticed him and some others, and if you actually like watch in a lot of the quick, zombie action scenes, there are more aliens than there would be otherwise.
Yeah.
There's nothing super crazy, like more. Oh, there's an in there. There's this, like it's just more, and it feels like a more Star Trek gets some flack sometimes for like, why are 90% of the people on this ship that is a interstellar coalition
Human.
of 150 aliens? Why are they all human?
Yes.
So yeah.
That makes me think there's entirely Vulcan ships. That makes me think, there's a whole
which is
ship of
established.
Betazoids.
There's a ship in an original series episode that is established as all Vulcan. So
Wait,
but yeah,
all hologram ship.
Okay. So yes, I think it's going to be great to see a lot more diversity in the crew. That's for sure.
Oh yes, for sure.
It was cool seeing the Argo again. Especially since continuity wise, it's only been a year since it was introduced. So it makes sense that that's the ATV that they were riding in on that planet.
In Nemesis.
And
it was from Nemesis, but so I will never
from
understand
a really terrible sequence in a really terrible movie.
Well, that's because Patrick Stewart wanted a car chase in his movie.
He did. He wanted a car chase in a Star Trek movie.
So they made it happen.
Prime
they
Directive.
made it so.
Yeah, they did. Prime Directive be damned. We're gonna have a shootout with this alien species on the planet, and so yeah, we got to see the Argo and the ATV on this new planet as their. I like the line they had is second contact is you make sure you get the name of the planet spelled right and you find good places to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like I'm a big sucker for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern style stories of like, okay, here's the big story that you're already familiar with, and now let's look at the nooks and crannies, behind the big story and, see the little characters running around in the background and what their stories are.
Yep.
I've always been a sucker for that kind of format. So, this, like, I was prepared to like really go into this and be like, oh, that was a great idea that they didn't do anything with it. But they, at least so far with the first episode, they seem to like really be taking the premise and doing some good stuff with it.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool. I like that they were giving her a tour. Is it Devana? Is that her name?
Devana Tendi.
Devana Tendi. They're giving Devana a tour, and Bramley's trying to be like all serious. Like, this is a very important hub here. And she's like, let's go show her the holodeck, which, by the way, that holodeck scene was freaking crazy with the Olympic program or whatever. I was
all these naked men working out.
Yeah, I was just dying when I saw
Watney,
that.
I thought of you when I saw that scene.
Why?
Because I thought that would probably be your favorite scene. I don't know why, just maybe.
I thought, yeah, it was great.
He was wrong. It was
Cartoon
mine.
butts.
That's something else that I think is really I don't know, promising or a good sign about the show, because again, that's another thing of like, people have talked about semi-seriously and comedically for years about, well, what goes on in the holodeck, well, and there's certainly like implications of it in the show itself. In the episode The Perfect Mates, the one with the perfect woman that Picard falls in love with, but she's destined for somebody else. There's a scene between her and Riker where like Riker has to stop himself, and at the end of that scene, he like taps his badge and tells somebody like, I'm going to be on the holodeck for the next hour or whatever it is. It's very much like Jane from Firefly, I'll be in my bunk moments. Right?
I did not get
so they have little touches like that, and
wow,
it's like, seems Lower Decks is going to tap into that for like the actual comedic potential that has always been there.
Yes.
And that it's been sort of hinted at, but like Star Trek as a primetime PG show can only take it so far. and now Lower Decks is taking it just a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we've already seen a little clip of Beckett having to clean out the holodeck waste area. It's like, what's going on in here? It's like, yes, everybody knows what's going on in there. Nobody talks about it.
We don't discuss that.
I thought it was cool that we got to see kind of the ensign quarter area, which is basically like one hallway with like a bunch of bunks. Because for so long, like we thought that they had like dorm room type accommodations on board, and
I'm sure on some ships they do.
Yeah, maybe on the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of the ranks ship, they don't.
They have a hallway.
Yeah, it's very much
well,
like
they say in
a dorm.
They say in the TNGA Lower Decks episode that like one of those characters is really hoping to get a promotion to Lieutenant Junior Grade or whatever it is, because at that point he will get his own room and he won't have to share it with the other Vulcan Lower Deck characters. Like, I'll finally be able to get my own room and not have to deal with you anymore. Odd Couple kind of style. So, yeah,
and that's the Enterprise. So,
and that's the Enterprise. 5 years or so, 5-ish years before Lower Decks is set. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, and that's how it was when it's kind of like college. You have a roommate. You're in a dorm. You got a roommate, and as you get further along into your last couple of years of college, you probably get your own place. You get an apartment. You still have roommates, but you have your own actual room. Whereas in the dorm, it's like when we say roommate, we mean that bedroom is not just you in it. You literally have a roommate in there, and
you're really crammed in there with 2 or 3 or 4 other people.
Right, exactly. So
I'm getting flashbacks. Stop.
Yeah, my freshman dorm doesn't exist anymore, but it was. They definitely got their mileage out of the many years that they used it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after the tour with the Lower Decks characters, we get to meet the executive officer, Commander Jack Ransom. That's right.
Yeah, Jack, not Zach, Dag.
Yeah, it's Jack Ransom, and he gets beamed aboard, and so does a little fly, which bites him on the neck, and that's where the crux of the plot of the episode kind of starts. And he's like, I should probably get that checked out. He's like, but nah, I'm gonna go do something else.
Go get some beers.
Go get some beers. So
can I just say something real quick about Jack Ransom? I was really excited about Jerry O'Connell being in this show and doing a voice of a character. And I don't know why this is or why they went this route, but that didn't sound like him at all. I would not have known that was Jerry O'Connell if you hadn't said anything. And I'm just curious as to, and I know that voice actors have a voice they do or whatever, but was there anyone else I was just thinking, holy shit, that like why doesn't that sound like him at all? It almost seemed like it was a very concerted effort to sound absolutely different. Like anybody could have been playing that part.
I don't know. I don't really know.
Honestly, like I remember reading or seeing that, Jerry O'Connell's going to be doing a voice. That's cool. I definitely recognize him as an actor. And then actually in the process of watching the show, never occurred to me. Like when that character was on screen and started speaking, never occurred to me to go, that's where Jerry O'Connell is. That's what he's doing. Yeah. Just didn't activate those neurons in my brain at all.
I got it right in the zombie breakout scene in their equivalent of 10 Forward, whatever they called that. I was just like, oh yeah, that's Jerry O'Connell. And then I'm listening for it and I'm like, yeah, I can kind of hear it. But, that's just something that I actually love, is that it's not obvious that it's Jerry O'Connell. This isn't Quinn Mallory. This isn't the kid from My Secret Identity. This isn't Stand By Me. This is a whole new thing. And I think Jack sounds cool because he sounds like he's the guy who's just going to get involved with everything and do everything. It's going to be great. That was great.
Now, here's a question for the nerds out there. Do we think that Ransom in Lower Decks is related at all to the character from the Voyager episode, Captain
Equinox?
Ransom?
I thought about that.
Equinox.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
I wonder if they're going to go the route that because the Captain Ransom of Equinox would fit as Jack Ransom's father. I think that would probably be the age difference we're looking at. Maybe older brother, something. I would have to think that name, that last name, that was intentional. Maybe it's just me.
I agree.
But
it strikes me as a
why would you?
we did this on purpose thing.
Yeah. Now to have it once, it's like whatever. You're not paying much attention to any character's name throughout any series. It's okay. This guy is Captain Ransom, whatever. But then when you go back and repeat it, and it's not a very common name anyway. Yes, I agree with you, Brian. That was that's telling me that either they're going to do something with that, or maybe it is just coincidence. But no, I really think they're going to do something with that at some point. That's my feeling.
I wouldn't put it past them, especially with all the references they were making throughout the episode, especially the blatant ones at the end.
Yeah, we're right. Yes, blatant, which is good.
Yeah.
That's another thing where I was really prepared for this as Star Trek has sometimes been in recent years, of somebody with a casual understanding of what Star Trek is then making their own version of it and sort of referencing, saying the right buzzwords but not really kind of using them correctly or in the right context, and so coming across as really disingenuous. But I thought all of those instances in Lower Decks, they felt natural and they felt like they really fit into the context of, the Star Trek and the Star Trek universe as we already are kind of familiar with it.
Yes.
Yeah, because they are kind of it's the Enterprise, and so everyone knows these people. Everyone knows this crew. They're hero worshipped, basically.
You guys.
So then what happened? What happened next?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah. I can hear you.
We can hear you. Did you cut out or something?
Okay. You guys froze on me for a second, but you're back now.
Okay. Awesome.
Damn Discord.
So we're keep chugging along here. So we see Boimler go up to the bridge, and he gets called in by the captain after talking to Ransom, and you see the boat bite. He scratches his head.
What are you doing here, Ensign?
And he's like, I was asked to be here, sir. And then the captain's like, you're with me, Ensign. They give each other a look. He's like, The commander's like, you get all the captain's attention. So then the captain basically asks him to spy on his crewmate, Beckett, and we don't know right now that that's her daughter, but it's still just an interesting scene, because you're like, does the captain really give a shit about this kind of thing? It seems like she's meddling, and then later on, you figure out why. She's just wasting Boimler's time, basically, which kind of sucks. But apparently he keeps 5 logs a day, and she's like, that's excessive. no other reply other than that's excessive. Anyway.
Yeah, that sequence on the planet was very revealing. He suspects that Beckett is trading weapons to the natives, but she's trading farm supplies and trying to just help them, eat. And he's like, how do you even know these people? And she's like, because I was here last year when we made first contact. And so there's a history there. Mm-hmm. She knows these people. She was present for something. And it might have been, her intervention during first contact that got her busted down a rank, not necessarily to where she is now, but at least, the fall from wherever she used to be could have begun by violating, just maybe even the Prime Directive. And then her mom and Admiral Dad were like, whoa, we're just going to bust you down to Ensign. Shut up.
Do you think that she was like lieutenant commander?
Ooh, I don't think that.
Yeah,
I don't think she was that high.
I'd like to think that she was that high.
What?
She said didn't she say she was up and
Okay.
down and up and down? Like
He's been promoted and demoted like half a dozen times already.
Yeah.
Which by itself would be funny because that's, something that's another aspect of Trek. Like in the real world, getting promoted or demoted in the military is a really big deal. That doesn't happen very often, but it seems to happen with more frequency in Star Trek of, well, Tom Paris is a lieutenant junior grade now, but he's an ensign, but now he's a lieutenant junior grade. For everybody except Ensign Kim,
Yes.
people go up and down pretty readily.
The
way Beckett is written, it sounds like somebody who is trying to use like the lower ranks as a coping mechanism and she seems to know the distinction between, being up there in command and not. She's dissuading Boimler from, wanting to be a captain at the beginning. And sure, at the end, she's like supporting it. But I think she definitely may have made it to lieutenant commander just because she seems to have knowledge of what it means to have that kind of responsibility. And she doesn't want it. She's revering the lower ranks.
Yeah, I think she's definitely, if we're talking alignment, she's like chaotic good. And so she doesn't really fit within the lawful alignment of Starfleet, but she still wants to make a difference. And so when she sees that Boimler also has a tendency to say, well, I knew that you were doing something good, and so I'm not going to report you for that, even though it doesn't follow our protocol entirely. She kind of says, well, we need more people like you in leadership if you're willing to do that kind of thing. So that's why I think she backs him in the end.
Did anyone else pick up the alien farmer having a Southern accent, little twang? I mean, that killed me. I thought, are you kidding me? That was freaking funny. And it was just a little thing. It was just a little thing. I was like, why? Why does this little alien farmer like, thanks for the equipment, y'all, or whatever he said. It was good. Yeah, it was just nice little touch and overalls and everything.
I thought the dating scene was funny with Sam.
Oh,
and I think she was a Trill.
A Trill, yes.
Did you?
Trill, yeah.
Was she a Trill? Because her spots were like light brown. I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be like darker or smaller or whatever, but I guess we can call her.
They can
Trill.
have Trill with different complexions, Watney. Jeez.
It's not about the complexion. It's about the spots themselves.
Okay.
Do all the spots look alike?
Do they all look alike to you? Do all Trill look alike to you?
If you're a species, that they haven't shown any that
Trills...
look like that before, which is why I'm questioning it.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, she was totally Trill.
Yeah.
I bet you think all the Klingons look alike too.
We see in DS9, like I think Daxes are generally more of a reddish brown, but then some of the other like one-off Trills we see are different shades of brown or red. So
yeah,
cool. She was cool, but in the end, didn't work out.
Which was a shame.
She's not as technically anal retentive as Rutherford is.
So he has an implant. He has an implant, and I'm wondering why he has the implant. Like, what made him decide to do that?
And it's a Vulcan implant.
It is a Vulcan implant.
Who does that?
So
no one decides to have a Vulcan implant.
It's like the reverse of Data.
Yeah.
You know?
It seems pretty clear that he didn't choose at least the nature of the implant, that it's a Vulcan versus a human or anything else. So like, it seems like there's an interesting story behind that somehow of whatever event led to him getting that and whatever the particular circumstances were that ended up with him having this like weird
to be
implant that is a mismatch for what his actual personality is.
Yeah, it must have been like a life-saving decision or something where he was at, why that had to happen.
He's only got 30 seconds to live. It's this or nothing. And something like that. Yeah.
And his date in the mess hall, she's like, well, actually, my dad was a cyborg. And so that's kind of like a cute moment. And
That was cute.
And so it makes me think that that's not uncommon because we see it in Discovery as well. With, I don't know her name because I haven't paid a whole lot of close attention to Discovery. Ariam. On the bridge, she is a cyborg as well. And so, in fact, when Tendi was leaving her runabout to be onboarded, in the very first few frames, you see someone wearing a Geordi eyepiece.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's so cute. We love to see it.
Yep.
So yeah, they kind of hit it off. Like at first, we know it doesn't end up working out, but I thought that was a cool scene. Then they do go down to the planet, and Mariner is just annoying the shit out of Boimler. And yeah, she does the whole he thinks she's getting weapons, but she's like, no, they're these space tools. And they like, she pulls them out and they're like green glowy bits of like shovels. It's literally just a rake and a shovel, but like they'd had to make them look like they're space tools.
But sort of like lightsabery, but
yeah.
just
How do we make a shovel look futuristic, guys? Like
you don't need to. It's a shovel. A shovel's a shovel. They had to put lights on
which is another great play on like Star Trek tropes of, okay, it's a glass and it's just a glass, but it has to look like a future glass somehow.
Yeah.
So
Gotta be
it's like
really stupid weird
Geordi's shaving, and it's like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
like we saw this when we did the episode review of was it Code of
Oh
Honor?
yeah,
Code of Honor.
Code of
Yeah.
Oh
Honor.
no, it wasn't. Was it Code of Honor?
It was Code of
Data
Honor.
walks in and tries to be funny.
Tries to
Okay.
tell the joke,
Yeah.
and Geordi, who's blind, tries to run out of the room.
Geordi, he can see. Okay, like he can still see, but he
No, he had the
has
visor
this,
off.
like
He had his
he did?
visor off. Yes.
Yeah,
The visor
he
was
was
off.
shaving
He was-
without his visor on.
Yes, he was going to take his chances.
Anyway, Watney's talking about the razor though.
Yeah.
I am. I'm talking about the little. It's almost just like a little Jello, like resin, like blue transparent thing that he's just like hovering around his chin. Like, how can we make a razor blade complicated?
How can we make shaving look
That's-
futuristic?
Yes. Yeah. So absolutely, the shovel was a part of that.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite background jokes in Next Generation is, I think it's Picard when he's getting his haircuts, when we see like the barber shop for the one time.
Mhm.
In the backgrounds, there's somebody getting their hair done, like color changed, and it's just somebody's waving a light wands over the person's head,
Mhm.
and their hair is like changing colors throughout the entire scene, and it's just like nobody notices it, nobody calls it out or draws attention to it. It's just a thing that's happening in the background.
That I like. Yes, there's that. But a futuristic shovel, I mean, is there a setting on it where like it'll dig deeper without you having to push down on your foot as much? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fully automatic shovel, of course.
hydraulic and everything.
Yeah.
I need it.
It has advanced artificial intelligence on it to really dig with the optimal efficiency.
It'll detect if you're about to hit a
dodge
power
rocks.
line.
computerized intelligence. Yeah.
It'll know if you're about to hit a power line or the sewer or something. All right.
And then Boimler gets munched on.
Oh
He-
yeah.
Oh no! Well, first the zombie outbreak happens on
Right.
board, so we go down to the planet, and they're like, "No, we need to set up this array for the Gallardonians, and so they can." And he has to like double check the name to make sure he gets it right because the guy's standing right there looking up at him, like hopefully, like, "Wow, this is such a great partnership." And he's like, "The Gallardonians." It's just the greatest.
It's great to be here in Cleveland. Let's see, this week it is the Gallardonians. Okay. And then next week it's going to be the Borgians or whatever. And
That's so
totally
right.
it's totally like that band doing the US tour, and they're like, shit,
Right.
is it Portland this week? I can't even remember.
Right. Where are we?
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because it's like so cute. It's like second contact to me. It's just like they're like, "We're so glad you're here. We need you to be a part of the we want to be a part of the Federation." They're like, "This is just my day job, dude." Like, so we cut back up to the bar and we see the couple like still on their date, and then as they said at the beginning that they were gonna do, the commander is at the bar as well, and he starts going fucking bonkers. This is the part that makes me believe it's like an adult oriented show, is because he starts to just like his black veins just like crawl up his face, and he starts like drooling black goo and then starts eating people.
Yes.
I'm like, this people, gave Picard a lot of shit for being like violent and things like that. And but this is just as bad. It's like, what did we see in Picard that was like super violent? What was like the one thing? Do you guys remember?
Well, Sutra removing the eye from
the torture
or the torch
of Egypt.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, that was not a fun scene to open up with.
But this scene with having Ransom like freak out in the mess hall is, to me, it's one of those scenes that happened off screen in a Next Generation episode. If everybody remembers Genesis.
Yes.
Picard and Data return to the ship and everybody's already mutated. So you didn't get to see this part of the chaos in that episode.
Correct.
And in this episode, you get to see that part of the chaos, but it's more of like what's happening around our lower decks characters. And I like that they sort of stuck with that premise that they said in their interviews before it came out, was the A plot of the episode happens around these characters. They're not really a part of it, but it's there and it's happening and it's important.
But they will intersect it at certain points, which is very much a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of like thing of, okay, here's the scene in Hamlet where they're actually part of Hamlet's story, but then they go off and we keep following Hamlet, but they have their whole other thing that's going on.
Well, and then here's
which I've always been a sucker for.
And here's the other thing. Apparently, the fans are okay with the implication of violence, but not actually seeing it. So when you actually see it on Picard, apparently that's a problem. However, in Genesis, you brought up a very good point, and it was something very disturbing that I read. I don't remember where I read it or who said it, but Worf ate somebody or multiple people.
Yeah.
That happened.
True.
How do you? One of the helm officers on the Enterprise had been disemboweled.
So here's the thing. You're okay with the implication that, how do you deal with that? How do you process that? We're basically some crew member and their families on this ship. It could have been a child, could be adult, who knows? There were some gruesome things that happened, and not just by Worf, but there were a lot of gruesome things that happened on this ship, and that's not dealt with afterwards. It's just next week on Star Trek Next Generation, we just forget that happened. So, we're okay with the implication of it, but we don't want to see it, and we don't want to hear about it. And that's the part that I don't get with the whole Picard is not my Trek because it was violent. Well, but
so this is another thing about Star Trek in general, where like going back to it's PG and it's network primetime originally. Like, again, if you're reading between the lines of the actual scenarios, and people have talked about some aspects of this, like there are horrible things happening. Like there are 5 and 6 year old children on board the Enterprise who are like facing death in certain death every other week.
Yes.
And this week we're gonna blow up the ship because this alien being is torturing us. And so the self-destruct is on for 10 minutes, and there's somewhere in that ship a 6-year-old dealing with their imminent mortality.
Yes.
And so people have sort of hinted at that, but again, it's not something that like Star Trek proper could ever really get into.
We get one episode of that, Imaginary Friend, where 6-year-old Clara's imaginary friend is about to destroy the ship because she doesn't understand adulthood.
Yeah. Well, I forget the name of the episode, but there's also that other one where basically a red shirt dies off screen, and it's very much like, oh yeah, this red shirt died and it wasn't a big deal, but the episode is about the red shirt's kid dealing with the loss and how the crew helps with
that's the bonding.
The bonding with Data kind of.
I was thinking of the one with Worf.
There's that one too.
Yeah, that's the one, I think. Yeah, because there's one where like Worf makes the kid, and I think it's the same episode, where he makes the kid a part of his family. Like, you are now officially part of the House of Moog.
Yeah.
And then we have never seen or
we never talked to him again.
Oh my god.
And then there's the other one
PG,
where
not through DS9, through nothing.
there's that kid who wants to be just like Data because he can't accept the fact that he's the only survivor of the ship and he thinks he blew up the ship. So imagine living with that. Like,
yeah.
There's an episode too where the kids get abducted by another alien race, and
when the bow breaks, season 1,
and Wesley teaches them about going on a hunger strike.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So
that's right. Oh Jesus.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know how anytime the ship gets hit with anything, you know the whole problem with exploding consoles and bits of rock flying everywhere. Are you going to tell me that in 7 years of the Enterprise D with families on board, that not one single time the ship got hit somewhere and a console didn't explode? Now, I hate to be morbid, but a console didn't explode in some kid's face or their parent?
Yeah, well, we saw there are classrooms on the Enterprise, right? And there were computer consoles in the classroom. So
we're taking this to a place I don't want to go.
Yeah, I think we got dark. Yeah, we started talking about zombies.
We love kids here, okay?
Yeah, we do love kids. Sorry, everyone.
Star Trek has always kind of had these like dark implications of the horrors of deep space.
Right.
You know, very much the Hugh episode of like, are you really ready for what's out here?
Yes. Yeah. Space is just about like surviving until it kills you.
On it, but yeah, I mean, so I just watched last night. I watched the movie Command, which is about the Kursk incident, which is essentially a Russian nuclear sub had an accident, was trapped on the bottom of the ocean. There were some survivors, and basically, if politicians hadn't been dicks about it, they could have saved these sailors, but they didn't. They weren't able to in time. But a lot of it is from the perspective of the sailors trapped in the submarine, and it's horrifying. It's absolutely a horrifying situation for these people to be in. Mm-hmm. And it's a horrible situation dramatized, and it's dramatized in a real thing. So it was a horrible situation at the actual event. Mm-hmm. But like, that's the feeling of what it would be like to be on a starship, but even tenfold, because instead of a torpedo blowing up, it's this alien that's torturing you just for the sake of it.
Yes.
Like, for no real reason whatsoever. So again, like not because I love Star Trek and I love to give it shit. So I try not to like spiral off too much into damaging it. But like, I think there are really interesting dramatic implications in that Star Trek never really touched or got into because it couldn't, because it had to be PG primetime network.
Right.
And now that like the media landscape is a little different these days, I'm hoping that we can sort of explore those ideas. And
it's not primetime television.
The Tarantino Star Trek we're all waiting for.
I would love to see Tarantino do a Star Trek movie.
So that's why we have now, instead of glossing over the zombie incident in the captain's log and not seeing it, we get to actually see it. We're not talking about...
Yes, because it gets glossed over. And the captain glosses over it.
And we get a character that explicitly says, "Oh God, I ate somebody. How
much human flesh did I eat?"
And in like really wrestling with the reality of that, where like we didn't have that moment with Worf where he went, "Oh shit, I guess I ate Ensign so and so."
Yeah,
we didn't have that moment again because PG primetime network. Right. But now we can. Yeah. Have that
it's
moment.
A cartoon, so you can say it and just as a joke, but it actually happened. Yes, for sure. I think when the zombie thing kicks off, we get the table turned over and you see like Sam with his date and their hands fall together.
Oh, and that was so
and
sweet.
They do this little like ear tuck thing. It's really cute.
And they're talking about playing squash.
They're just like trying to continue the date on, because like dating on a starship, you only have a certain amount of people that you can date, so you really want to make sure that you can you may or may not be compatible with someone.
The dating pool is small.
Yeah. So then we go down to the planet again, and while the zombie thing is like happening, and we see Beckett driving off with her off-roader to go deliver these fancy shovels, and she meets the aliens and Boimler catches her and he's like pointing a phaser at her, like, I'm gonna report you. Ah, ha ha ha, I gotcha. And she's like, you literally don't know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden there's a giant spider.
And it's also, I love that was a great character moment because we've already established her as this, like, she doesn't care about the rules kind of character. But in that moment, we learn that she knows the rules. She knows them just as well or better than the bots, by the book, destined for the captain's chair character.
Right.
And so that's a really interesting shade in terms of, it's not that she just doesn't care and she's never paid attention. She has paid attention, and after having paid attention, she's made a conscious choice to not care about those things. And
she's going to break the rules
how did that character come to be? Which I think was a really nice way of adding a shade of complexity to this character in a really
I like her.
Flowy way, really elegant way.
Yeah, I like her a lot. I think she's right now. I think she's my fave, just because she's like, I'm gonna be in Starfleet to get to places to help people in ways that they usually wouldn't, and I have a moral conscience. I know what's right and wrong, and honestly, I think she would be a great captain because being a captain would put her in command, and it would allow her to do things without having to answer to anybody else out on the frontier.
She reminds me of Kirk.
Yes, she does remind me a lot of Kirk.
It's definitely like a more of a frontier seat of the pants kind of situation. Like Janeway has a line at some point talking about the Kirk era, in universe, and she says something like, Starfleet officers in those days were maybe a little faster to pull a phaser, a little slower to invoke the Prime Directive, and cowboy diplomacy, which is what they call it in the TNG episode that has Spock in it. And yeah, it seems like, okay, Starfleet has moved more into this officious bureaucracy away from kind of the Kirk gunboat diplomacy thing. But she is a throwback to that in the sense of like, no, I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to do what I think is right in this situation. And I'm not going to worry about the admiral that I have to report to at the end of the episode. And the admiral in this case happens to be her dad, which will probably
when they're not afraid to demote her either. Yeah, they have done it. And so I think that kind of shows too, like she has grown up with the kind of upbringing and parents that say like, okay, we're not going to be afraid. We don't buy nepotism. Like, you're going to have to earn this. And, we're not going to elevate you just because of we are leaders here. Like, you're going to have to make your own way. And she's like, fine, I'm going to make my own way. But she's smart enough to say like, I'm going to pull all of these plants up out of the ground and make like dummies for us to put our clothes on. So this spider eats us there. Like, she's just really like resourceful and intuitive. And she applies the rules where they actually like matter.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah. I also think it's an interesting implication that as the daughter of a captain and admiral, she would have had to have grown up seeing the hoops that they jumped through to become a starship captain and an admiral in the first place. Like, she would have watched them do that as a child. So that at some point she saw what they did or what they had to do to reach their positions and made a conscious choice of, no, I don't want to do that. Whatever they did, I don't want to follow in that path. And I want to help people. I have the same basic values of helping people and doing the right thing that they do. But whatever hoops they had to jump through, I refuse to jump through those hoops.
I'm not going to kowtow to authority. I'm going to get good things done.
There had to be some ass kissing and some boot licking in politics to get to that level. And she's just decided that's not me. I'm not doing that one.
I've had to do that enough with my parents throughout my life.
Right.
They're both one's an admiral, one's a captain. I'm not gonna do it to everyone I ever meet. I get it. We also
I've seen the game that they had to play, and I do not want to play that game. I refuse to.
Yeah, and it's cool that we get a decisive character who's like that, and she's the foil. I think I said this in our preview of the show that I believed that she was going to be the foil to Boimler, and she absolutely is. She's the one that they're a great pair. He's the guy who goes by the book but then fails the driver's test when he has to get in the car. And she is.
It's a great analogy.
Well, no, it's not original. The voice actor Tawny the voice actor of Boimler, which that's Jack Quaid, right?
Jack Quaid.
He said that of him when he was talking about him. So, but yeah, but she's going to be the foil to him. So I'll be very interested to see kind of like, oh, she's kind of thinks he's cool now. And he's going to push back a little bit against the perception she has of him, because that was probably to him like a one-time thing where he didn't report her for something because it was good. And she thinks that he is going to keep doing that. And so it's going to be this like headbutting that goes on. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, they definitely set it up as a pull between, you know, two characters both trying to do the right thing but coming at it from very different angles and having strong opinions about the angles that they're coming from. And it's going to be a push and pull in terms of who is right and who is wrong in any given situation, which I think is going to be a great dynamic. I hope they realize the potential that, you know, not realize as in understand, but they fulfill the potential of that premise.
Dag, any thoughts?
I am just sort of like reminiscing while you guys are talking about the episode and all the implications and stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Cool. So we get to see one of my favorite things in Trek, which is the EV suits, because we never get to see them. We saw them in First Contact, but like I love EVA suits of any kind, like in Firefly when they had to go like out of the ship because the fire, like Serenity was being invaded. They had to like go out and see the black of space. Like I just love the idea of not just transporting everywhere, but having to like get somewhere physically. And so in Trek, sometimes you have to go outside the ship. So we get to see these really cool EV suits that they wear with their mag boots walking along the hall. And she makes a reference to the Monkees, which I thought was kind of cool and weird.
Music.
That's like was my mom's favorite band growing up before she met Sting. So it was cool that they mentioned the Monkees. I might have to actually watch this with her and see if she catches it.
That was a great reference. I liked it. Classical music, the Monkees.
So they go through the door, and then Sam is like, there's something wrong. We have to run a diagnostic. And she's not interested. She wants to make out. And he's like, that's how I knew she wasn't the one.
Oh,
it's because she didn't want to help me figure out a problem on the ship. And she's like an engineer or something too. Do we know if she's engineer or if she's operations?
Tendi?
They said something about how she works on the deflector dish.
Oh, so she's
at the beginning of their date. He says something like, "Oh, you work on the deflector dish. That's so cool. I would love to do that. So I'm stuck doing whatever, this other thing." So I think that's as far as the episode actually told us, though.
We might get to see her later, but I don't think she's one of the main Lower Deck characters. But then we go back down to the planet, and Beckett is consoling Boimler after he was just gummed up by the spider. And he's got like this purple goo and shit, and
he's naked.
He's like totally naked. And she's like, it's gonna be okay, I promise, look at this beautiful landscape, blah blah blah, we got to help
the 1,000-yard stare.
Like, I think we make a good team. And he's like in just in shock from like having to go through that. And then we also get to see sickbay. Hell yeah, that's my shit. We get to see sickbay, and Tendi is like holding the heart of this guy and having to like pump it, which I thought was like super gnarly. It's like, welcome to the Ceratops. Here's a heart, pump it so this guy doesn't die. And he's like, that's my heart, it hurts. It's just such like that's what's the comedy like, part to me. It's like dark comedy.
Every time she pumps it, she's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Then they beam back up, and we discover the purple goo on Boimler is the cure-all to the rage effect happening from the mosquito bite and the zombieism.
Which is an awesome classic Trek thing of like, aha, of course, this is the item, the element that will solve the issue of the episode.
This one Chekhov's gun will solve everything in 5 minutes. We just need to synthesize the right Chekhov's serum.
And I think it kind of makes sense because the fly and the goo were both elements from that planet. So in that biosphere, the goo was the counteraction to the fly's infection.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably the spider's defense against whatever the fly.
And maybe, thereby everybody else's defense against what the fly does.
Yes.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
what
the
milk is
native.
for.
Yeah, the milk has elements of the goo for sure because it's the same organism. It's like the same kind of genetic material than that. And so I'm sure that if they were drinking the milk from the spider, which is the weirdest sentence I think I've ever said, they would have been immune to the bite from the bug. And you can tell that we're Trekkies because we like to analyze this kind of horse shit.
Did the spider have nipples?
How does this alien ecosystem actually work from A to B to C? Let's
yes.
really
let's hash it out. Let's make a mind map. So we get to see the Cation doctor, who I absolutely love. I said this in our preview that she was going to be like Bones, and she absolutely is the Cation version of Bones. Yep. And we get to see, like Dag said, I think in our preview, the doctor coat, the lab coat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Crusher's lab coat.
Crusher's lab coat, but in a lighter color. Yeah. I loved her. I loved her attitude. She was just like getting the job done. You need to wrestle this guy, and don't be afraid to double him up when you tie him down. It's like, if you're a sickbay chief medical officer on any kind of starship, you gotta like work out and be ready to like do that kind of stuff. You never know when.
Gotta be ready to restrain someone.
But like even at the end, she's like, she's just ticked off about all the paperwork she's got to fill out after she did this thing.
The paperwork she has to fill out to like get famous for making another incredible discovery, right? Like,
yes,
she's saying like, oh, you're gonna write these papers and win another 6 awards for whatever.
Right.
It's like, oh crap, paperwork. Like that's a great mindset and a great illustration of that mindset.
We see a kitty.
Would you like to see my kitty cat?
Kitty cat.
Oh, you got a kitty. Speaking of Cations.
Oh, we're a cat house here. Oh, what a cutie!
Welcome to Beyond Cat Podcast.
Beyond Cat Podcast. I like that, Dag.
What's is your cat a girl or a boy?
Girl. So I have two. I don't know where the other one went. But it's Ghost and Snow. This is Ghost named after Jon Snow's direwolf. Back before that particular show.
When it was still good.
It went the way it did. That's Ghost, and then Snow is around here somewhere.
Gotcha.
Are they both white?
They're actually from the same litter. The
That's
idea,
great.
So at the time, I was hugely obsessed with Game of Thrones and the Jon Snow character and that whole story, and I had wanted to get a cat for a while. So I was like, I'm gonna get a white cat. I'm gonna name it Ghost, and then some friend of a friend of a friend popped up on my Facebook feed of, well, we have this litter of cats and we need to find homes for them. And there were 2 that were whites from that litter. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to just pick one of them?
They're better in pairs.
Yeah. So I brought both of the white ones home, and I have twin cats now.
Okay.
Who look exactly the same, but have incredibly different personalities. And it's ridiculous.
Oh, that's such the way of the cat, isn't it? They're
because of
like
course they're
humans.
cats.
Yeah, they are. I have 2 too. And one is like, I want to rub up against everyone that comes in the house, and I want to be everyone's best friend and hold their hand. And then our other one, like, the joke is we only have one cat because she hides under the bed anytime anyone comes to the house, and that no one ever sees her but us. So not to derail, but anytime I see a cat, we gotta touch base and learn a little more.
Yep.
So there's a scene in this particular shot which makes me really just think that Beckett Mariner is going to be a captain someday, when she's basically the last in line as everyone's running through the halls to get Boimler to sickbay to like synthesize the goo on him. And she's in the back just poo, like her phaser at all of these zombies behind them. And she's like the most cool, collected, like cucumber, like on board. Like she's like handling the problem. She's tied her hair up, she's had some coffee, and now she's handling it. Like, and I just think that, she has all this experience, but she doesn't want leadership. She just wants to do good and have fun. And I think I just really like her character the more.
And their Bajoran bodybuilder chief security officer was just murking these zombies left and right.
We didn't get to see too much of him, and I wanted to hear him talk because his voice actor, Dag, really hyped him up in our preview. He did, his name's Fred T or something. He did the voice of Saren in Mass Effect, and I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. So
Tatasciore, Fred Tatasciore.
Tatasciore or something.
Fred Tatasciore.
Tatasciore. I was hoping to hear more of him, but I'm sure we will.
There will be time.
Well,
Honestly,
his best line was, "We should blow up the warp core."
Yeah.
And then
Can
she's
I
like,
please do
no,
that?
and it's like, oh, which is also a great kind of reference to a throwback reference to TNG and Worf, because if you haven't seen it, look it up right now. It's amazing. Somebody compiled all of the instances in TNG where Worf makes a suggestion about what they should do and gets shot down by Picard or Riker or whoever, and it just keeps going and going and going. Like, we should raise our shields and fire immediately. And no, Mr. Worf, that's not. No, of course not. And it's just over and over and over and over.
permission to fire, Captain. No. No.
Wolf,
Yeah.
what are you going to do with that glass of prune juice? I'm going to destroy the Romulan Empire, sir.
I love the security officer. I love like the idea of the beefy Bajoran just like fucking shit up. And I did say, and I want to correct myself here, last episode I mentioned that I saw on IMDb that all the voice actors for the Lower Decks main cast would be in all the episodes, and then the bridge crew cast was in one episode. But I know that's not right anymore, because we saw them, of course, in episode 1, and in their preview, we definitely get to see them in the coming episodes as well, which I'm happy about, because we need these authoritative figures to drive the narrative and to make these big decisions. And so it'll be really good. I like what I'm seeing so far.
But you need the occasional intersection between the two types of stories to really like make the most of the premise of the story itself, which is the fact that they're in this corner of, this Star Trek episode.
You need someone to drive the plot, and you need somebody to be along for the ride.
Yeah. And it's like, we need those intersections to remember that like the kind of Star Trek that we're familiar with is still happening over here. And that's the framework that the story that we're actually watching is taking place within.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I did not know before the episode that the captain was her mom, and that there was going to be that whole dynamic. So with that, like, certainly
that's the link.
That's going to be a thing going forward.
Yeah, that's the link between the Lower Decks crew and the bridge crew is Mariner.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't want to be famous, doesn't want to be like her parents. Although her mom is kind of like, reminds me a lot of her, now that I know that it's her mom. Like,
there's a lot of things that fit now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So they synthesized the cure.
It's one of those things.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, there's an aphorism about storytelling in which, like, whatever the thing is at the end, the feeling that the audience member should have at the end, like, say, The Usual Suspects or something with a twist, should be like, oh my God, that's so surprising. But at the same time, you should have the thought of, why didn't I see that makes so much sense? Why didn't it occur to me before now? Like, that's the kind of the reaction that, if you really tell a story and set everything up the right way, that's the reaction the audience member should have. And that's definitely the reaction I had when they made the connection of, oh, the captain is her mother, in terms of like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming at all. But that makes so much sense. And that makes everything that we've already seen fit together so much better. So really well handled.
Yeah. I'm excited for this show. I think it's like going to have a lot of heart.
It is.
Yeah. I'm more excited than I thought I would be. I knew that they were going for like a Rick and Morty feel. I know they have at least one Rick and Morty writer that came over, and it's a very Rick and Morty style. And don't get me wrong, I like Rick and Morty, but I was worried about like that translating into the Star Trek context and the kind of stories that Star Trek and the kind of characters that Star Trek typically, features. Because Rick and Morty it's funny, but it's also kind of pretty nihilistic and pretty chaotic. And Star Trek isn't that so much.
One of the cool things is that of the Rick and Morty writers, the nihilistic ones did not come over to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Mike McMahan, who was one of the head writers for Rick and Morty, is credited as the creator of Lower Decks, and he also wrote the first episode.
Okay.
And he got the job in it where he just thought he was sitting down to have lunch with Alex Kurtzman and talk shop, and started talking about, man, if I was ever going to do a Star Trek show, this is what it would be about. And Kurtzman was like, all right, you got the job. And he was like, what?
All this shit happens over lunches. That's how Picard happened.
Yeah, but we mentioned it in our last episode, but like McMahon had been writing Star Trek scripts on his own with never intended to pitch them back in the 2000s.
Almost like fan fiction.
He was just a big fanboy of Star Trek. And so, his lunch with Kurtzman is what nailed him the job. And he just has a passion for Star Trek that so far, one episode in, not a whole lot of statistical statistics there, but
not a very long track record.
It seems to be paying off. I'm excited to see what he can do.
I'm excited
too. It paid off for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've been seeing too is not critical. A lot of it is praise for the episode in regards to its pacing, its tone, the plot, and the characters. I think that we're going to be in for a treat for sure, and I am super excited. The show ends up wrapping with Boimler on the bridge making a suggestion or something, and everyone's like, are you serious? So it all ends up being fine. Everyone, gets healed up, and we'll have just a reset. It's kind of like reminds me of Voyager a little bit.
Yes.
Where we'll just blow the ship up and we'll have an episode next week. See you then.
So one of the really cool things that I get a very strong sense of with this show is they're combining, in my opinion, the best of TNG with the best of DS9 in that TNG gave us that episodic, you could watch it out of order and it was kind of okay feel. You didn't have to be glued into every episode. And so we're going to get that because we're doing these second contacts, and we're going to get new scenes, new scenery, new backgrounds, new plot, things happening like that. But we're also, I feel very strongly that we're going to get a lot of character continuity between those episodes that we got like on DS9. And, they said on DS9, if it's just set on a station, then you have to focus on the characters. And now they're going to give us this ability for these characters to not just grow with each other, but to make more of those recent references. We didn't get a lot of that from TNG. There was some, but not at least my expectations. You didn't have Data referring back, oh, remember those 3 times I got hacked recently? Nobody ever mentioned that again. Which is something that I think is going to flourish in Lower Decks.
Yes.
Just given the fact that they made all the references they did at the end of the episode, they're definitely going to grow and reference those events. And to me, that is the bread and butter of what made TNG and DS9 so good.
It'll be episodic episodes with serialized undertones.
Yeah, like Boimler and Beckett's kind of like friendship and what goes on there. And I could see like Tendi and Sam like hitting it off really well too. And then the whole thing with her parents. I mean, it's going to be good. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, one thing that TNG tended to do, like TNG was actually pretty good about referencing things that had happened in previous episodes in terms of, oh yeah, Data did whatever, this thing did happen last year, like
right. TNG
Troy
did not ever reference something that happened in the past.
Sometimes they did, yeah, but they were always like little character things.
Yes,
and they didn't really like drive the plot very often. Right. So there's a lot of like nice continuity in terms of oh yeah, this thing that happened in season 2, where it's sort of relevant here, so we're going to mention it. There's that, which is great, but none of that stuff ever really drove the plot because TNG was more tied to this episodic format that DS9 then actually pushed it, where like, yeah, this thing happened to me 2 years ago, and it actually really changed how I interact with the world and how I view things and what how I live my life, which is TNG never really could get that far. So hopefully, like Lower Decks will be able to ride the best of both of those worlds and make something really cool.
Yeah, with all the fun that animation lets us have.
With all the freedom that comes with animation.
With all the freedom. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're ready to wrap. So thank you so much again for coming on with us, and listeners, make sure you tune into Star Trek Tempest. I think you can listen to it on Spotify. Where can you find it? GM?
You can find it just about everywhere. If you go to our website, starshiptempest.com, that will have links to iTunes, Spotify, Google, and there's actually a web player on the page itself. So if you go there, you can find us everywhere else.
And you're also on Twitter and Instagram.
Yep, we're on all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, although there's nothing on Twitch right now, all under the handle Starship Tempest. And that's Starship Tempest, not Star Trek Tempest. So
right on.
Starship Tempest.
Yeah, all of our internet link stuff is Starship Tempest.
That's very good to
we're glad to have you.
Get on CBS.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's probably obvious I could talk about Star Trek all day long, every day.
Yep.
But I don't get the chance to do it nearly as much as I would like, which would be all day, every day. So I'm
we'll do this
for any
again.
opportunity to do so.
We'll do this again. Definitely, so that we can mix in there little updates on what's happening on the Starship Tempest. Because we're going there will be opportunity for sure, because we just started a 23-week straight marathon of episode reviews, and I had an existential crisis the other day because I realized, that's like 6 months, and I almost
what'd you get into, Big J?
What have I have I done? And you guys are gonna be giving me these hour-and-a-half recordings to edit, and they do it to me all the time, Brian, all the time. It's like if we could like just help out Big J, but no, they don't care about my suffering.
We don't do it for you. We do it for our listeners.
They don't care about my suffering.
For everything, and you two can commiserate, because we give Ryan a whole big pile of mess to turn into something real. Yeah.
So thanks, guys. You did it to me again.
Yeah, we did. I'm going to tell you where you can find us online. You can find us, of course. We have our Patreon at patreon.com/BeyondTrek. We would love your support there. We have some cool, fun tiers, so check us out. And we have our Twitter, of course. That's where Dag lives, eats, and breathes, at Beyond Trek Pod. Find us there. And we have a Facebook, facebook.com/Beyond Trek Productions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you all.
Here's to more Lower Decks.
More Lower Decks. Bye.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.